What's up guys, welcome to part 4 of my rewrite for Star Wars Episode 9 The Rise of Skywalker, or as I'm calling it in this rewrite, The Dawn of the Paladins. If you guys haven't seen parts 1, 2, and 3 yet, then you should probably go check those out before watching this video. The links are in the description below. But if for whatever reason you guys don't have time to watch it, here's a quick recap of what happened so far. If you don't need the recap, you can skip to this time in the video. To help boost the First Order's numbers, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren makes a pact with an ancient alien race of conquerors known as the Yusong Vong. With their help, Kylo Ren and the rest of the First Order overthrow Coruscant, the Chancellor is executed, and General Hux keeps the New Republic in line by holding the Senate hostage. Kylo Ren finds a secret door under the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, and he begins hunting for a legendary relic known as the Codex, which will help him open the door. Nobody knows why Kylo wants to open this door in the first place, but he's dead set on finding the Codex. After passing her trials, Luke knights Qi'ra as the first Grey Paladin, and they host a party for her on Kashyyyk, since that's where the Resistance has been hiding out for the past year. Sam finds out that General Emmett, a member of Resistance High Command, is a traitor, and he enables the First Order and the Yusong Vong to launch a surprise attack on Kashyyyk. The Resistance escape to Nal Hutta, but at the cost of Chewbacca staying behind and sacrificing himself so that the rest of his friends can have enough time to escape. The Wookiees in the Resistance are granted sanctuary on Nal Hutta by the crime lord Lando Calrissian and his associate, the pirate queen Maz Kanata. Luke and Qi'ra visit a Force Oracle called Tor Valum, who gives them directions on where to find the Codex. Meanwhile, Kylo Ren journeys to Mustafar to find directions to the Codex as well, but Sam is tipped off to Kylo's whereabouts, and he plans to ambush Kylo Ren on Mustafar and avenge both his mother and father. Luke, Qi'ra, Lobaka, and Maz go with Sam to Mustafar because they're afraid that Sam is way over his head, and that Kylo Ren will end up adding Sam to his body count. Meanwhile, R2-D2 and C-3PO join Finn and the rest of Renegade Battalion on a secret mission to Coruscant. Their goal is to infiltrate the planet and lower Coruscant's defenses so that the Resistance fleet can help liberate the planet. But Renegade Battalion loses the element of surprise, and in the middle of a firefight, the droids are separated from Finn and the rest of the task force, and now they're trapped behind enemy lines. Okay, now that we got that squared away, let's move on to the rest of this rewrite. We start off with the midpoint, the halfway mark in Act 2 that splits Act 2A from Act 2B. This is also the point in the story where the protagonist's circumstances go from good to bad, or bad to worse. Okay, here we go. The midpoint. We open on the planet of Mustafar. Kylo Ren and his small warband of Yusong Vong and Sarlacc squad troopers approach the desolate structure of Darth Vader's castle. The building has been abandoned for nearly 30 years and is overrun with layers of ash and rust, but it's still holding together, barely. Despite being neglected and unkept for so long, there's just something about Darth Vader's castle that's still just as imposing and intimidating as the man himself was. It's almost like his strength and his malice have remained here even after his death. Kylo and his warband begin searching through the dust-covered rooms, reactivating old computers, and searching through databanks. Kylo shares with his men that when his grandfather was alive, Vader had secretly searched for the Codex in an attempt to overthrow his master back during the Imperial era. But, like all the others before him, Vader failed. Nonetheless, Vader believed himself to be close to finding the relic, but alas, he was unable to complete his search because he died unexpectedly aboard the second Death Star. Kylo Ren believes that the forgotten journals and star maps of his grandfather can help them finish Vader's quest and find the Codex. And Kylo is proven right. Kylo comes across a star map that charts a course to the unknown regions. This is it. Kylo has found the coordinates to the most powerful artifact in the galaxy. Kylo puts the star map in his pocket and goes out to the balcony of the castle, pulling Vader's melted mask from his bag. Kylo will make a prayer to the mask, once more promising the spirit of his grandfather that he will finish the work he started all those years ago. Kylo's prayer is cut short when he sees the Millennium Falcon appear through the smoky skies of Mustafar and land outside the castle.
Ah, so it had been Hux all along.
Kylo will fill his minions in on the trap that he laid for the Supreme Council after he suspected one of them to be conspiring against him. Kylo Ren provided each of his generals with a different lie as to where he was going to look for the Codex to help weed out the turncoat. Only General Hux knew that Kylo Ren would be on Mustafar, so the mere presence of the Jedi on Mustafar proves Hux's guilt as a traitor. The fight scene that comes next will be very similar to the battle that we see take place in the ruins of the second Death Star from the original film. Amidst the ruins of Vader's castle, Kylo Ren and his warband will face off against the would-be assassins. The fight will start off within the halls of Vader's castle, but then transition to the volcanic valley outside. Since the last time Kylo and Luke crossed blades was in the climax of Episode 8, and that duel was pretty much a fake-out, this will be the true rematch between Master and Apprentice, as Luke and Kylo Ren are reunited once more. After questioning his former Padawan, Luke will learn that Kylo Ren intends to use the Codex to help him reshape the galaxy forever. After eons of conflict, Kylo Ren remains unconvinced that the Jedi's philosophy of peace through freedom is accurate. Freedom is what caused so much violence and tragedy in the first place. Look at how many wars have been fought and how many lives have been lost because a few rotten apples were given the freedom to spoil the entire barrel. History has proven that people squander their freedom. They corrupt the gift of free will by embracing evil and sin. Therefore, freedom leads to inevitable chaos. Kylo Ren affirms that true peace can only be achieved through dominance, through control, through structure, and order. He's fully committed to the idea of totalitarianism. Nothing can deter him from this path. The First Order is effective, but it can only do so much in the here and now. The Codex will help make Kylo Ren's dream of galactic peace a reality forever. Kylo Ren will accuse Luke of corrupting his grandfather and leading him astray from the path that he was on. It's Luke's fault that Vader never fulfilled his quest in finding the Codex and establishing complete control over the galaxy. So now, Kylo Ren will avenge Darth Vader and complete what his grandfather started. Both Luke and Kylo Ren will use every trick up their sleeve in this fight, as Luke will use forgotten Force techniques like Force Absorb to redirect Kylo's Sith lightning, Force Levitation to hover in the air and fly, and more common Force abilities like Animal Kinship to summon a local lava flea to come in to aid him in the battle. The lava flea will also ambush Sarlacc's squad by bursting up out of the lava lake and eating two of the troopers alive before being slain by their brothers in arms. At a certain point in the fight, Qi'ra will be wounded and taken out of the conflict by a trio of Yuuzhan Vong warriors who gang up on her and use one of their snakes to poison her. The alien brutes will stand over Qi'ra and prepare to deliver the killing blow, when Loey will run forward with a roar and thrust his hands out. All three Yuuzhan Vong warriors will suddenly be hurled into the air as they tumble off the side of a cliff down into the pool of lava below. Qi'ra will roll over to see Loey staring down at his hands incredulously. The little Wookiee just used a force push to save Kira's life. This is the first time he's ever done anything like this before. Maz will congratulate Loey on his newfound connection with the Force, but encourage him to not get distracted and to come support her and Sam in their scuffle. Sam, Maz, and Loey will gang up on a third Sarlacc trooper, and through teamwork and dirty fighting, they manage to overwhelm the soldier and butcher him, leaving only 3 of the original 6 Sarlacc troopers alive. Luke will then force pull Anakin's lightsaber from Kira's immobile hand over to him, and he'll dual wield both his green and blue lightsabers against Kylo. In that moment of action, Luke will utilize both of the lightsabers he's used in his career as a Jedi, the blue one that he used as an apprentice, and the green one that he now uses as a Jedi Master. After stunning Kylo by force pushing him up against a cliff and knocking his head up against a rock, Luke will hear Qi'ra call out to him as she writhes and twists on the ground with pain. The veins on Kira's body turn a sickly dark green. The poison is starting to take hold. Luke will rush to her aid, applying force heal to her injuries. With one hand, Luke will hold Qi'ra down with force freeze, while using the other hand to force pull the poison out of the bite marks on her arm. Qi'ra will scream in agony as the deadly liquid is sucked out of her bloodstream. Luke will then gently shush Qi'ra as he holds her hand and caringly wipes the sweat from her brow. Exhausted, but alive, Qi'ra looks up at her uncle in gratitude, their eyes speaking more love than words ever could. A crimson jet of angry red energy suddenly bursts through Luke's chest. Kylo Ren tugs his lightsaber free from his uncle's torso. The old man leans forward and topples onto Qi'ra like a rag doll, falling into her arms. Qi'ra will scream with pure grief and rage at seeing Luke hurt, and her cry will be magnified by the Force, turning her shout into a siren-like sonic blast. The power of her cry causes Kylo Ren to kneel and cover his ears in pain as the ground around him begins to crack. The entire portion of the cliff that Kylo is standing on crumbles and collapses into a powerful avalanche. Kylo Ren is swept away, and he disappears in a cloud of dust and stone as the ground around him caves in. The 3 surviving members of Sarlacc's squad disengage from their fight, and they dutifully fly after their leader with their jetpacks. The battle has ended. Qi'ra will cradle Luke in her lap as tears pour freely down her face. No, 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 please, no! Qi'ra desperately tries to force heal Luke, but she's too weak, and a lot of her energy has already been drained by the poison. She keeps trying nonetheless, but Luke puts his hand over Kira's and motions for her to stop trying to heal him. He points to her chest.
Don't let it control you.
Luke's eyes close, and his face takes on a peaceful expression as his body evaporates into thin air and he becomes one with the Force. Empty robes are all that remains in Kira's arms, and so passes Luke Skywalker, hero of Yavin 4, champion of the Rebel Alliance, redeemer of Darth Vader, and Grand Master to both the Jedi and Grey Paladin orders. In his final moments, Luke didn't seem tired or in pain, but calm, relaxed, and content. Maybe even happy. Sam will kneel down beside Qi'ra and try to comfort her, but she viciously lashes out at him, shoving Sam to the ground and wailing on him as she cries. Through her choked tears, Qi'ra yells at Sam and blames him for Luke's death, declaring that this would have never happened had it not been for Sam's demented obsession with killing his brother Kylo. Maz and Loey pull Qi'ra off of Sam, but all Sam can do is stare down at the ground in shame. Qi'ra's words have pierced through his soul deeper than any physical blade can. She's right. It is his fault. It's all his fault. The greatest hero of the Resistance and their best chance at winning this war is now dead. And it's all because Sam couldn't let go of his anger and his vengeance. Act 2B. General Hux receives an update that they've lost contact with Supreme Leader Kylo Ren and his warband. It's been days since he's reported back to the First Order, and all attempts to contact him have failed. With fake grief, General Hux accepts the troubling news and walks out onto the balcony of the Chancellor's office, where a number of camera droids activate and begin streaming a live broadcast of General Hux. He announces to the rest of Coruscant that their great and noble leader Kylo Ren has been assassinated, struck down by the warmongering cowards of the Resistance, and that it is with a heavy and humble heart that General Hux completes Kylo Ren's crusade, and he crowns himself as the new Supreme Leader of the First Order. Once the broadcast is over, Hux calls up Captain Phasma through a hologram. The Battle of Nal Hutta rages behind her in the background. General Hux updates Captain Phasma on his ascension, commanding her to stop wasting her time with the rabble on Nal Hutta and to return her forces back to Coruscant so that they can strengthen their blockade on the planet. Meanwhile, on Mustafar, the surviving crew members of the Millennium Falcon will honor Luke with a Jedi's funeral as they fold Luke's gray Jedi robes into a neat pile before Qi'ra uses the Force to place Luke's clothes on the river of lava, cremating the clothes. Maz will then turn to Sam and urge him to return to Nal Hutta and rally their forces. The Resistance fleet will have to be stationed outside Coruscant and be ready to attack so that they can help liberate Coruscant once Finn lowers a planetary shield. But most importantly, the Resistance will need their leader if they're going to take back Coruscant. Sam agrees that his responsibility is to the Resistance, and that his immaturity has brought nothing but shame to Leia and Luke's memory. But he's going to fix that. And the first step in redeeming himself will be to rescue Coruscant from the grip of the First Order. Sam will then take the Falcon and lightspeed back to Nal Hutta, while Qi'ra and Loey, too traumatized by their grief to make any decisions on their own, follow Maz's lead in commandeering Kylo Ren's shuttle, the Knife 9, and using it to fly off into the unknown regions and retrieve the Codex. We cut to Kylo Ren, who's just dug himself out of a pile of rocks that buried him after Qi'ra caused the avalanche. His armor is severely scuffed and banged up, his cape is torn and ragged, and he removes his cracking, dented helm to see that his face is bleeding and bruised. With sudden urgency, Kylo begins shuffling through his bag, and in horror, he pulls out the broken and shattered remains of Darth Vader's helmet. The most important link that Kylo had to his grandfather is now gone, destroyed, just like his plans for a new and better world. Mournfully dropping the shards of metal from his hands, Kylo stares at the ocean of lava, ruminating on his defeat. His brooding is suddenly interrupted by a soft voice calling out, "Ben." Kylo spins around and ignites his lightsaber, but is dumbfounded to see a specter standing in front of him. It's the Force ghost of his grandfather, Anakin Skywalker. The two gaze at each other in ominous silence, the sounds of magma burning and the crackling of Kylo Ren's lightsaber being the only noise in that quiet valley of ash. "Ben, what have you done?" For the sake of time, I didn't write any specific dialogue for this scene, but the basic gist of this quiet and emotional conversation is that Anakin points out the flaws in Kylo Ren's misguided ideology and tries to dissuade him from continuing down the path of the dark side. Kylo Ren will be torn, acknowledging that he has sinned but believes it is for the greater good. But after Anakin points out all of his faults, Kylo Ren becomes unsure of what to do next. Anakin tells Ben that he still has a role to play in the history of the galaxy, but what that role will be is up to Ben to decide. After a moment's hesitation, Kylo's face will become set with conviction. The three survivors of Sarlacc Squad arrive and descend down around their master with their jetpacks. They report that Kira, Maz, and Loey have stolen the Knife 9 and flown off-world. Kylo Ren turns towards his men and strides past them, ordering them to help him find a ship. They scour through the hangar of Darth Vader's castle, where a few of the Dark Lord's personal TIE fighters have been sitting dormant for years. With some help from Sarlacc Squad, Kylo Ren jumpstarts a few of the ships, and they each take a fighter and fly off into space. We cut over to Nal Hutta. Sam returns aboard the Millennium Falcon, and he relays the news of Luke's death to the Resistance. This turn of events proves to be a real punch in the gut to the Resistance fighters, as Sam can feel the morale drop amongst the troops as they despair over the loss of the legendary Luke Skywalker. Sam will then apologize to the Resistance and the Wookiees, acknowledging that he has been acting like an immature child, a poor friend, and an even poorer leader. He promises to make up for it by reclaiming Coruscant and restoring freedom to the galaxy.
"It's time for us to show the Empire, the First Order, whatever they want to call themselves. It's time to show them that we're not afraid. They can take our homes. They can take our loved ones. They can even take our lives. But they can't take what we stand for. The freedom that our mothers and fathers fought for, we will not let die. Not today. Today, we make our last stand. For my mother Leia, for Han, for Akbar, for Luke, for Chewie, for everyone we've lost. They've taken enough of us. Now we take the war to them."
The Wookiee and Resistance troops respond with a resounding cry as their spirits are lifted and they begin mobilizing. As the fleet gets organized, Lando will tell Sam that he needs to take care of his crew and make sure that his operations here on Nal Hutta are stable before he commits to any more fighting in this war. Sam shakes Lando's hand in respect, thanking him for all the help and support he's given, and he boards the Millennium Falcon. A few Resistance fighters from our Episode 8 rewrite will make a reappearance here, like Nia Nub, Beaumont, Yipsit, and Hooper Tenrix, as they get to serve aboard the Falcon as her temporary crew in the absence of Kira, R2, Lobaka, and Chewie. Together, the Resistance and Wookiee fleets, fully assembled and ready for war, will jump into hyperspace with the Falcon at the head of the charge. The time has come to strike the final blow. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Maz will be piloting the Knife 9 through the unknown regions, while Kira and Loey serve as her co-pilots. Kira will explain Tor Valim's directions to Maz. They must go to the Aurora Nebula, and once they find the Tree of Creation, they must pierce the heart. Maz inquisitively rubs her chin as she punches in the coordinates and follows the navigation computer into the depths of uncharted space. Thanks to the Oracle's directions, Maz was able to chart a safe course to help them safely avoid space hazards like asteroid belts and black holes. While Maz is busy flying the ship through the dust clouds of the Aurora Nebula, Kira will notice Loey sitting alone and huddled against the corner of the cockpit, trying to mask his tears as he snuffles into his furry arms. Kira will approach the young Wookiee child and do her best to comfort him and reassure him. The loss of Chewbacca and Luke, on top of learning that he's Force sensitive, has overwhelmed poor little Loey, and he shares with Kira that he's afraid. He's very afraid. Kira will then pass Luke's green lightsaber on to Lobaka, completely intimidating him as he bashfully admits that he's not worthy of such a weapon. After convincing Loey that he is indeed a hero in his own right, and after promising to watch over him and be his new guardian, Kira is able to get the teenage Wookiee comfortable enough to accept her gift just as Maz pulls up to the Tree of Creation. It turns out that the Tree of Creation is a constellation of gas and dust, like the molecular hydrogen constellations that we have in real life, like the Pillars of Creation and the Hand of God. Except, this particular constellation is shaped like a giant tree, almost like the world tree Yggdrasil from Norse mythology. To find the wills, you must pierce the heart. Maz mumbles this to herself as she squints thoughtfully, and an idea pops into her head. She aims the ship towards the base of the constellation, the part that would essentially be the tree's roots, and commands everyone to buckle in. The ship starts to jolt and jiggle as the 3 passengers bounce in their seats. As they approach the constellation, a bright light from the center of the tree's base starts to shine brighter and brighter until it completely blinds the passengers and forces them to shut their eyes. There's one final flash of radiance, and Kira will slowly peek open her eyes to see that she's no longer aboard the Knife 9, or even in space for that matter, but she's instead hovering a few inches above a calm and still ocean. In the distance, Kira sees a shoreline that leads into a forest with strange trees and a high mountain range. Kira spins around in alarm. Strands of cosmic energy slowly twirl and dance around the air, almost like veins or trails of pollen blowing through the wind. Above Kira are small, floating islands with waterfalls that gently trickle down into the ocean around her. The water itself shares the same purple, orange, and pink hues as the sunset, yet there seems to be no sun in this place, despite the fact that the entire area is illuminated in bright light. Wherever Kira is at, it's not an ordinary place. This is a spiritual realm, a place of ethereal and celestial energy, something that exists on another plane of existence, a place that doesn't obey our conventions of space, time, and physics, but something else, something old and mysterious. At a distance, Kira sees the Knife 9 parked on the shore of the beach. In wonder, Kira finds herself able to walk on water as she takes a step forward towards the shore. Mesmerized, Kira walks across the ocean to the pebble beach and inspects the ship, only to find it empty. Kira starts to worry as she realizes Maz and Loey are nowhere in sight. Out of nowhere, a voice calls out,
Do not be afraid. Your friends are safe.
"Who are you?" A small glowing orb of light materializes in the air above Kira and descends down in front of her face.
We are the Wills.
I'm looking for the Codex.
We know. We have been watching for a very long time.
Then you know why I have to find it.
Come.
The little glowing sprite flies off into the enchanted forest, and Kira trudges along after it. She passes by more floating rivers of energy as she follows a sentient ball of light to an altar made out of floating rocks. Near the altar are Loey and Maz, sleeping peacefully as their bodies are gently suspended by thin air. Upon Kira's approach to the altar, an entire cluster of glowing lights, identical to the first one, emerge from the branches of the trees and begin flying and twirling around Kira, making her smile in bliss as they brush past her hair. Again, for the sake of time, I'm not going to include any specific dialogue that is spoken between Kira and the Wills, but basically, the Wills will explain to Kira that she is standing in their ancient homeland, which the Wills refer to as the Garden. She is in the very center of the universe, where all life began. The more questions that she asks, the more Kira starts to realize that the true nature of the mysterious Wills, these microscopic little creatures that have been living within every single cell of every single living thing since the dawn of time, these Wills, they're not servants of the Force. They are the Force. Not only that, they've been keeping track of galactic history since the very beginning, but have taken a very special interest in the fate of the Skywalkers. Starting with Anakin, and now focusing on Ben and Sam Solo, the Wills have been shaping the destinies of the Skywalker family to help achieve their will and balancing out the Force. Kira becomes puzzled and asks for clarification on what the balance of the Force truly means, because Luke believed that the light side of the Force and the dark side of the Force acted as a yin and yang to each other, canceling each other out and creating balance that way. It's a philosophy that believes there cannot be light without darkness. The Wills will debunk Luke's theory, and explain that the true balance of the Force resides in allowing the light side of the Force, regardless of its various forms, such as the living Force and the cosmic Force, to carry out its will. The dark side is not a healthy contrast to the light side, as Luke thought. It's a cancer that arose from individuals who corrupted and misused their gifts that the Wills blessed them with. The Wills cautioned Kira to not allow the Grey Paladins to make the same mistake of believing that the dark side can be used for good. It's a convincing lie that has succeeded in tricking many fallen Jedi in the past. They warned Kira to not lead the Grey Paladins astray by associating themselves with material entities like governments and kingdoms. Serving the Republic and getting involved in politics is what led the Jedi to ruin. Force users should pledge their allegiance to the Force and no one else. Whenever anyone tries to serve two masters, it always leads to ruin. But the Grey Paladins have the opportunity to succeed where the Jedi failed, by remaining true to their calling and serving only the Force. With that warning, the Wills explain that they have been watching and shepherding the journeys of many individuals since the dawn of time. Like thousands before her, the Wills have been observing Kira's journey from the very start to help guide her in fulfilling their goodwill. They know what is in Kira's heart better than anyone else, and they love her for it. And they're so proud of all the progress she's made in her voyage. From orphan to scavenger to smuggler to Padawan to Grey Paladin, Kira has come a long way and has proven herself worthy of the Wills' grace. They will allow the Codex, their most sacred and holy relic, to be placed into her care. But with great power comes great responsibility. Since the Codex will upgrade Kira to her fullest potential and make her infinitely more powerful than anyone else in the galaxy, Kira must be cautious to not let her anger overcome her better judgment, lest she will become 10 times worse than Kylo Ren and all of his lackeys. Kira humbly kneels and agrees to these terms, giving thanks and praise to the Wills for their generosity. The Codex will suddenly rise up out of the nearby pond and levitate over to Kira. She reaches out to grab the artifact, but the Codex is suddenly ripped away from her. Kira sharply turns around to see Kylo Ren standing at the other end of the glade, catching the Codex in his gloved hands as he completes his force pull. No! Kylo Ren's entire body is enveloped in pure, blinding light as he is lifted off the ground and transformed. He throws his head back, and beams of energy flash out of his eyes and mouth as he transcends into godhood. The bruises and scratches that Kylo's face acquired on the landslide on Mustafar are completely healed and restored to perfect condition. The light fades from Kylo's body, and he drops back down to the ground, looking normal as ever, as Kira ignites her lightsaber and rushes towards him. With a casual wave of his hand, Kylo Ren performs a force technique never before seen in the history of the galaxy. Strands of energy start to seep out of Kira's body as Kylo begins draining the life out of her. He's absorbing her soul and making her weaker with every second that passes by. Kira is confused and helpless all at the same time. Unable to defend herself from this new attack, Kira quickly becomes very, very thin, and her skin turns deathly pale as all of her energy is sapped away. Kira collapses to the ground, looking like a skeletal version of her former self. Kylo looks around, pleased with himself, before turning and leaving with his new prize. Kylo Ren and Sarlacc's squad reclaim the Knife 9 that Kira stole from them, but not before Kylo Ren uses the Force to easily crush all 4 TIE fighters that Kylo and his men brought with them, leaving Kira, Maz, and Loe stranded in the garden as they fly off into hyperspace. Maz and Loe are suddenly awakened by the Wills, and they come to Kira's aid, attempting to revive her. A few of the Wills will float down and lightly land on Kira's immobile frame, illuminating her with their essence as they restore her to full strength. With a gasp, Kira sits back up and recovers from the shock of nearly dying. The Wills urge Kira to follow after Kylo and retrieve the Codex before he causes irreversible damage. It's not too late for them to stop Kylo Ren, or else the fate of the galaxy will be changed forever. The Wills beckon the Paladins to follow them to the edge of a cliff, where a waterfall leads down into the ocean. The Wills instruct our heroes to dive into the water, and they will be taken to the destination of their heart's desire. Kira, Maz, and Loe nod, and they bow to the Wills, thanking them for their assistance before they begin diving one by one into the ocean. Right before she dives, Kira will look over her shoulder one last time at the collection of Wills hovering behind her. a tiny yellow kyber crystal suddenly hovers over Takira, floating at her eye level.
A gift to aid you in the battles to come. Let it be your reminder to always strive for balance. Trust in the Force above all things.
Kira slowly takes the yellow crystal and inserts it into the hilt of her empty saber staff.
We will be with you, always.
Kira turns and jumps. We cut back to Finn and his stealth team on Coruscant. Now that they're on the run, Renegade Battalion retreats into the lower levels of Coruscant, where they hide amongst the criminal underworld in a seedy bar on level 1313. Finn instigates an uprising amongst the low class of Coruscant citizens, preaching to the bar's downtrodden patrons and rallying them all to stand up and overthrow their First Order oppressors. The patrons become motivated by Finn's passionate words, and they begin grabbing any weapons they can to fight back. With his allies from the bar, Finn regroups with Renegade Battalion, and they all march through the streets of Coruscant's lower levels, calling out to any bystanders that they see to stand with them and fight back. As they rise through the levels, more and more citizens flock over to Finn's growing militia. Once they finally reach the surface of Coruscant, Finn and his ragtag army are confronted by fully mobilized regiments of pure stormtroopers and Yuuzhan Vong, flanked by a few AT-ATs, and led in the front by Captain Phasma. Everyone freezes in fear. Nobody moves as the tension silently builds up between the two armies. Before a firefight can ensue, Finn climbs up to the top of some crates and shouts out to the stormtroopers, addressing his former comrades. As a former slave of the First Order, Finn appeals to the pure stormtroopers' mistreatment at the hands of their so-called saviors. He exposes the First Order once again for the liars and kidnappers that they are. He is able to turn the tide and preach the good word of the resistance to his former brothers and sisters. His words start to affect some of the stormtroopers, and they begin looking at each other in uncertainty. Finn has become an evangelist. Captain Phasma attempts to silence Finn by blasting him in the shoulder, but that only succeeds in triggering the Coruscant militia, and all hell breaks loose as the citizens begin surging forward towards the stormtroopers, most of them armed with makeshift weapons like sewage pipes and mechanical tools. Since Star Wars has been known to draw from historical groups and events as a source of inspiration for its storytelling, I thought it would be fitting to have this standoff serve as a metaphor for the Boston Massacre. Several of the pure stormtroopers turn on their brothers and sisters and begin aiding the militia in reclaiming the capital. Gritty firefights are spreading throughout the streets of Coruscant as Captain Phasma and the loyal Sith troopers pull back and request reinforcements. The Yuuzhan Vong start tearing the militia to pieces, but they are suddenly decimated by cannon fire from the AT-ATs, whose operators were also motivated by Finn's words and have decided to defect to the resistance. Now with the Yuuzhan Vong out of the way, Titan Squad directs the locals in strategic ambushes throughout the city, claiming more and more ground as they make their way towards their new target, the docks of Coruscant. We may not be able to lower the planet's shield, but if we can gain control of their ships, we'll have them by the balls. Finn calls up C-3PO on his communicator and redirects the droids to the docks. Improvising his original strategy, Finn instructs the droids to upload the virus that was originally meant for the planetary shield, and he tells R2 to instead upload it onto every ship at the docks. The droids agree to carry out the mission and begin making their way towards the docks. Together, Titan Squad and a chunk of the Coruscant militia will storm the docks. Finn, wounded but still alive, hunts down Phasma and throws a ton of insults at her honor in an attempt to draw her out of hiding. Finn's ploy works, and he and Phasma will face off in one final climactic duel. Their rivalry has come to a head, as this will be their last stand. As Finn and Phasma duke it out on the hull of a docked Star Destroyer, Titan Squad and a handful of pure stormtroopers will rush onto the Star Destroyer to support their respective leaders. But the entire Coruscant fleet will activate and start hovering into the air as they prepare to shake off the stowaways that are fighting on their hulls. Both Titan Squad and Phasma's teams will get caught on the exterior of the warship as all the ships begin to ascend into the air. With no other choice before them, the two groups continue to wage their battle on top of the ship itself as it lifts off into the sky, and the winds threaten to push them all off. Jaina and TK will hold off the stormtroopers while Finn continues his rematch with Phasma. At that moment, R2 and C-3PO will successfully infiltrate the control room at the Coruscant docks, and R2 will take the virus and upload it to the dock's mainframe. which causes every single ship in the Coruscant Navy to be infected with the virus. All of the ships lose power, and one by one, they begin tumbling back down to the surface of Coruscant, where they each go up in flames as they make impact with the city's docks, and a chain reaction of explosions consumes all of the landing docks. Both the Coruscant militia and the pure stormtroopers will get caught in the obliteration of the docks. This is a level of mass destruction that the city of Coruscant has not seen in a long time. But, as a result of this, R2-D2 is badly damaged, and all of his systems are fried. Numerous First Order droids tried to stop the virus from various locations around Coruscant, but R2 managed to thwart all of their hacking attempts with firewalls, and he mustered up all of his strength to keep the virus active. While the little astromech droid proved successful, the feat proved to be too much for him. R2 overextended himself, and he's now fried beyond repair. The computer terminal that R2 is working at overloads and combusts, propelling R2 into the wall and banging up the little droid even more. As R2-D2 slumps against the wall, sizzling and smoking, he makes sad little beeping sounds at his old friend C-3PO. The protocol droid will sit down and comfort R2-D2 in his final moments. R2 will ask C-3PO to do him one last favor, and that is to upload all of R2-D2's databanks to a drive for safekeeping. R2 has been around since the very beginning of the Skywalker saga, and he doesn't want the incredible story of the Skywalker family and all of their friends to be forgotten by future generations. These memories will be R2's legacy. C-3PO agrees to do the transfer, and he uploads all of R2's memories onto an external drive before all of the lights on R2's body fade away, and the brave hero R2-D2 goes silent forever. And so ends the remarkable life of one of the galaxy's greatest heroes. Uploading the virus and disabling the fleet was R2-D2's final act of heroism, a noble sacrifice worthy of legend. Meanwhile, as all the ships fall down outside, plummeting to their doom, Finn will beat Phasma in a duel, disarming her and knocking her down to her knees. He'll knock off her helmet, revealing her face for the first time. She looks up at Finn and snarls, "You were always scum. Rebel scum." Finn Sparta kicks Phasma off the side of the Star Destroyer and watches her tumble through the air as she plunges to her death hundreds of miles down below. Finn will then turn to Jenna. "Is now a good time to die?" This is a reference to the line that Jenna told Finn during the Battle of Kostopsis in the Episode 8 rewrite, where Finn tried to sacrifice himself, but Jenna stopped him because she told Finn that they still had work to do and that they couldn't die while the First Order was still at large. But now that their ships have been crippled and the First Order is on the verge of collapse, it's a different story. Jenna looks into Finn's eyes. "Never better, sir." Jenna then jumps forward and passionately kisses Finn. TK will run up and join his teammates, bear hugging the two of them in his massive arms. All three members of Titan Squad will hold on to each other in a tight embrace as their ship crashes down onto the docks, joining the blazing inferno. The Star Destroyer is consumed by an explosion that completely blows the entire vessel to bits, killing everyone and everything within a 2-mile radius. Meanwhile, on the other side of Coruscant, within the Trop Hill Gardens, a large fountain will begin boiling and bubbling until 3 figures burst up from the water. Soaking wet, the Grey Paladins pull themselves up out of the fountain to see that the planet of Coruscant is enthralled in chaos. Citizens are screaming left and right, as stormtroopers and Yusong Vong alike are roughly commanding everyone to get off the streets and return to their homes. The sounds of explosions and blaster fire can be heard from afar. Huge clouds of smoke choke the air and blot out the sky, and without a second thought, Kira and her companions begin making their way on foot towards the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, which they're able to see in the distance through the gaps of smog choking the air. Meanwhile, up in space around Coruscant's orbit, a new development arises. The Millennium Falcon emerges out of hyperspace, flanked by the rest of the Resistance and Wookiee fleets. Now that the Coruscant Defense Fleet has been disabled, that only leaves the First Order fleet to contend with. The Star Destroyers that make up the Coruscant blockade take their positions and begin opening fire on the newcomers. The final battle between the Resistance and the First Order has begun. And that concludes part 4 of my rewrite for Star Wars Episode 9, The Dawn of the Paladins. In the next and final video of this rewrite, which is part 5, I'm going to cover all of Act 3. This is it, guys. We're in the endgame now. This is going to be the conclusion of the epic 9-story odyssey that is the Skywalker saga. If you've enjoyed this rewrite and you like having voice actors participate in these videos, then please consider following me on Patreon so that I can continue to afford hiring more talent for these videos. You can help support the channel at patreon.com/PhoenixStudios. It really helps these videos maintain a level of quality, and if you guys want to see more awesome rewrites from this channel, then go ahead and subscribe so that you can get notified when a new video drops. Let me know what you all think of the rewrite so far, and I will catch you guys next time. May the Force be with you.